we should approach the issue of immigration enforcement and reform on a bipartisan basis, as indeed this committee did in passing an immigration reform measure last session. Unfortunately, it was not brought to the floor of the House, but it passed the United States Senate by an overwhelming bipartisan majority. And that's the approach that we need to keeping our country safe and making sure that immigration laws and enforcement of them is fair and in our self-interest. And I hope that we can approach these issues on a bipartisan basis. I continue to believe that immigration reform is vitally necessary, and I hope that we will continue our work toward it in the next session, if not this one, because it is broken. Our present system is failed and failing, and we need to provide a path toward earned citizenship for the 11 million people who currently live in the shadows. And we need stronger means of enforcement at our borders, which also was one of the objectives of immigration reform, along with eliminating abuses in related programs like H-1B visas and expanding the number of H-1B visas that can be provided. Those kinds of reforms are vitally necessary. In the meantime, enforcement, that is to say, fair and effective enforcement, must continue to be a priority. I know from my own life in law enforcement how important it is that laws be enforced fairly and effectively. I did it as an objective when I was United States Attorney in Connecticut, and for 20 years as Attorney General of my state. In my view, while the Obama administration has made real progress on this front, it could and must do better. Law enforcement requires zeal and effort and good judgment. We're going to hear today about numbers. Experts disagree on whether deportations are going up or down, and the right way to answer that question. In my view, immigration enforcement is about more than just the numbers of people removed from the country. It's about priorities. If the Department of Homeland Security removes millions of people from this country each year, but fails to keep America safe, it has failed to do its job. Let me give a case in point. On June 15th, 2015, a man named Jacques killed a 25-year-old young woman named Casey Chadwick in Norwich, Connecticut. Jacques was an immigrant from Haiti. After serving more than 15 years in prison for attempted murder, Jacques was detained by immigration officials. Unfortunately and inexplicably and inexcusably, he was never removed from the United States. Instead, he was released from ICE custody, and that release allowed him to murder Casey Chadwick. I've demanded an internal investigation by the Inspector General. In fact, I believe that that investigation must lead to accountability. I've been joined in that effort by Representative Courtney and my colleague, Senator Murphy. I hope and demand to see that report. In fact, I think it should be done immediately. The information that I have succeeded in obtaining from ICE thus far has only increased my concern. And it makes me more skeptical than ever that ICE did everything in its power to remove Mr. Jacques from this country. I've met with the family of Ms. Chadwick. If I needed any source of passion or intensity, which I felt before seeing them, observing their courage and strength certainly would provide it. And so I believe deeply that this administration must do better, and I believe it will be determined to do better as a result of heeding the calls from members of Congress, as well as others, and advocates of fairness and effectiveness in enforcement. The Obama administration has committed to focusing its resources on removing dangerous individuals like Jean-Jacques, deporting felons, not families. I believe that's the right policy, but every time ICE fails to deport a dangerous individual, it undermines the country's confidence in that agency and in fair and effective enforcement of our current immigration laws. They need reform, but right now they have to be enforced with the credibility and trust that good judgment is involved. My caseworkers frequently tell me about people who have broken no laws, who are working hard, paying taxes, raising their families, including children born in this country, threatened with deportation. They pose no risk to anyone. Deporting them instead of Jean-Jacques indicates misplaced priorities. And so these cases are heart-wrenching and heartbreaking. They indicate a need for the administration to do better. And I hope that the hearing today and other steps in the right direction will prompt wiser and better judgment from ICE, and that we will see very quickly, in fact, within days or even hours, that report from the Inspector General, and that anyone responsible for the failure to deport Jean-Jacques will be held accountable. I want to thank the witnesses who are here today. Mr. Homan, are you aware of the Jean-Jacques case?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me when the Inspector General report will be done?
I do not know. I know it's ongoing. I know they're questioning employees within ICE, but I have no idea when that report will be finished.
Would you agree with me that finishing that report as soon as possible is important?
Absolutely.
Are you aware of the facts surrounding that case that so greatly distress the family and many of us in Connecticut, namely the fact that this individual simply was not deported when he should have been?
I agree with you. It's a terrible tragedy. The reason he was not deported because the agency could not obtain travel documents from the country of Haiti. That's my understanding of the case.
Even though everyone knew he was from Haiti, correct?
We had evidence he was from Haiti, but unfortunately the government of Haiti would not issue a travel document based on the evidence that we had.
So the refusal of Haiti to provide these travel documents prevented ICE from deporting Jean-Jacques. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding, yes, sir.
In your testimony, you mentioned that the Department of State and ICE are working together to overcome some of the challenges raised by countries that refuse to accept their citizens back in their countries, like Jean-Jacques. And by the way, I disagree that he could not have been deported, that sufficient measures were taken to compel Haiti or persuade that nation to take him back. But let's put aside that disagreement. Can you tell me whether progress is being made by ICE and the State Department to pressure countries to repatriate their citizens? Because there are, after all, I understand, as many as 85 countries, 23 on the list of resistant or uncooperating countries and 62 being reviewed for strained cooperation, still not fully cooperating, and Haiti is on the list of the 62 countries mentioned in your testimony that strain cooperation, but still are not deemed recalcitrant at this time. What progress has been made?
In the past year, as far as what I've done as EAD for ERO, either me or my deputy have penned 64 Annex 9 letters to foreign consulates here in the country, asking for assistance in retaining travel documents with their consulates. The director, Saldana, she has issued 2 démarche letters in 2015 to Algeria and Iraq through the State Department. There are 4 additional letters action being taken on now to Cuba, Guinea, China, and Liberia. Cuba, we're asking for démarche. Guinea, we're asking for visa sanctions. China, we're asking for a meeting between the Assistant Secretary of Department of State, the Director, and the Ambassador.
What does démarche mean?
It's a letter explaining to them their responsibilities under the convention, and we're not getting the cooperation from their consuls to receive the travel documents in a timely manner, or sometimes not at all.
And what's the consequence?
Well, there's an MOU signed by the Director of ICE along with the Assistant Secretary of Consular Affairs for the Department of State, and the first thing is Annex 9 letter letting them know, hey, we need some assistance on a travel document for a person. But the process starts with issue of the démarche letter. The démarche letter pretty much lays out the responsibility and our dissatisfaction with travel document issue. Then the second step in the MOU is they hold meetings with the ambassador and the U.S. Assistant Secretary for Consular Affairs to discuss the situation. Then we provide notice to the country formally deemed recalcitrant, and that we will attempt to ask for visa restrictions from the State Department if the cooperation does not come.
Have visa restrictions been taken against any of those 62 countries?
Visa restrictions have been taken against Guyana, I believe. The other 62 countries, no, sir.
Were any of these steps taken in the Jacques case against Haiti?
I do not know.
Would you find out?
Yes, sir.
Have any actions been taken against Haiti since the Jacques case?
Haiti is actually, we've made progress in Haiti. We actually returned 433 Haitian nationals in 15, and so far this year we have returned 206 to the country of Haiti. So we're actually making some progress with them.
Is Haiti on the list of 62 limited cooperation
Yes.
countries? And so, could you give me those numbers again?
In FY15, 433 Haitians were removed to Haiti, and so far in 16, 206.
And how about in the years previously?
I do not have those numbers with me, but I can make them available to you, sir.
Would you provide those numbers?
Yes.
The fact of the matter is, wouldn't you agree Jean-Jacques should have been one of them?
I wish he would have been one of them, yes. It was a terrible tragedy. I've been a law enforcement officer for 32 years. I don't want to see someone like him run around the streets of this country.
Wouldn't you agree that even stronger action needs to be taken against these countries that are non-cooperative or recalcitrant?
Yes.
And what steps is the Department of State or ICE taking to make sure that stronger action is taken?
Well, again, we have an MOU that's existing. I think we're taking steps within that MOU. When it gets beyond the Annex 9 letter, that's higher pay grade than myself, that's the director. But I certainly think more needs to be done with countries that don't accept their nationals, countries such as Cuba, a whole list of the 23 countries, because many criminal aliens that we can't remove are residing in our neighborhoods, which they should not be.
Criminal aliens should not be permitted to stay in this country. You agree?
Yes.
It's not about building walls or excluding people on the basis of race or religion. It's about deporting, sending out of this country people who have demonstrated that they are dangerous and broken our laws, many of them felons, in the case of Jean-Jacques, a convicted felon, who then do pernicious and insidious damage to our people. And let me just say, the more I hear from your agency, nothing personal to you, the more troubled and disturbed I am about the lack of strong, effective steps that will restore credibility to this system. And that credibility depends on fair and effective enforcement. So I hope the message will go back to ICE that before long, we will reach the conclusion that Congress needs to be involved to assure that dangerous lawbreakers are repatriated to their countries when they are here illegally. Thank you.
If I may, with one additional point, that I think the Department of State is a piece of this equation too. Only they can order visa sanctions, so I think it needs to be a collaborative effort between both departments.
I take that point, and I'm glad you added it. My comments are directed to the administration, not solely to ICE. You are absolutely right that the Department of State and perhaps the Department of Justice have roles to play here. So I thank you for making that point. I just want to make a quick comment simply to emphasize that to you, Mr. Vitiello, you are here to, in effect, represent the men and women who are in the trenches on the front lines. And I am eager to say simply thank you for the work that you do, because as Mr. Homan has said, you're out there every day. You collectively are there under very difficult circumstances, enforcing policies that may be imperfect in many ways, and we can disagree, senators at this podium, about the merits of those policies, but you're responsible for protecting America. And I just want to say thank you, but also to say that your courage and your excellence in the work that you do and your fellow officers, I think, should embolden us to do better. And I don't mean only the administration, I mean Congress, because we may need to make sure that enforcement is fairer and more effective against those people who are in this country already and who pose a danger to our citizens. And my colleague has suggested that the Secretary of State should pick up the phone. It may not be quite that simple, but I think he means it in a symbolic sense, not literally, that whether it's visa restrictions or some other steps, the United States of America needs to make sure that we are protected from people like Jean-Jacques. We can agree that it was a tragedy, but we should also agree that stronger action should be taken, because it will happen again if the nation fails to take that kind of stronger action. And having talked to that family, one of my missions in this job will be to do everything possible to make sure that their grief and sorrow is in some way an inspiration for us to take stronger action. So I thank you for being here today, and I hope that that Inspector General report is forthcoming as soon as possible.
Well, thank you, Senator. We're blessed to have men and women in the Border Patrol that are dedicated professionals who protect America each day in somewhat arduous conditions. The job they do is tough. They do it well. It's a job that has consequences, and I thank you for lifting them up.